the intrigues continues.
What do you expect? That's what politics is. Those people come up with all kinds of allegations, but it is still incumbent on whoever to decide to say, well, proving beyond reasonable doubt, that was not me, and
perhaps
all of that.
This has
so
done that,
very
proving beyond reasonable doubt for Femi Gbajabiamila. Well, let's move on now. The news of the discovery of another Abacha loot has got Nigerians talking.
Yeah, authorities in Jersey say they have seized more than $211 million belonging to late Nigerian military dictator Sani Abacha. Senior correspondent Femi Akonde felt the pulse of internet users to this latest tranche of recovered funds.
The different hilarious reactions to this recovered loot more than 2 decades after the death of military dictator General Sani Abacha is in itself news. One Twitter user even says the late military leader is the most generous head of state that ruled Nigeria. Even after death, he is still sending money to his countrymen. Another tweet says, Abacha's loot is like Nigeria's problems. It will never finish. A tweet labeled him as the real Martin Luther King. While another says the man was helping Nigeria invest because every time the country enters hard times, some loot is found again. For Dipo Awojide on Twitter, he wonders why people joke about someone that potentially destroyed the future and the country. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission says the Swiss government alone has returned about $1 billion Abacha loot since 1999. There have been questions raised about the handling of this slush fund repatriated to Nigeria. The federal government says the recovered money was used to make the conditional cash transfer of a monthly amount of 5,000 naira to more than 300,000 poor homes across the nation under the Social Investment Program. The Corruption Perception Index of Transparency International ranks Nigeria as the 144th least corrupt country out of 175 countries. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, joining me now via Skype from Columbus in the United States is David Ugolo, Executive Director and Founder, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ugolo. Now, several reactions have trailed the recent discovery of another Abacha loot. Let's get your reaction, first of all, to this.
Again, thanks for this opportunity to speak on this issue of the recovery of Abacha loot. No doubt people are very cynical because of what has happened previously, particularly against the background what happened in the Abacha one in 2004 and 2005. And that, again, has raised questions about whether people really trust government, whether the money that is recovered recently from the Abacha, which is the $322.5 million, will be properly used. And against that background, there's been questions here and there, particularly against the background when the wife of the president have also raised a very serious question about whether people are benefiting from the northern part of the country. However, civil society, who are partners who have signed an MOU with the federal government, monitoring the utilization of the recovered asset, can confirm that, yes, the money is actually going to the poor across the country. And for the past few months, we have carried out this independent monitoring. We have seen that money is actually leaving the central bank, it's getting to the poor people. And that, for me, is something that is very important for Nigeria to take note of. And there are issues. For example, the people that are not benefiting very well, they have a grievance mechanism they can utilize to benefit, to ask questions as to whether there are issues around those whose names are not in the social register. And how that social register was designed with the cooperation of the World Bank is something that Nigerians must take notice of. That the first time in history, politicians are not able to influence who whose names appears in that
because,
register.
Mr. Ogola, I need to cut in here now because Nigeria is still being described as one of the nations that has the poorest of the poor. And so questions are still being raised as to how really these monies are being used and justified. So now that another loot has been found, how would you expect the government to go about ensuring that there is justification for the spending of this monies to reaching out to the poor?
That's why I said there's no doubt the corruption problem in Nigeria is widespread, no doubt. But there is opportunity for Nigeria to show clearly that things are going well, and that again is what I just mentioned earlier on, that in the Abacha too, the federal government, the first time in history, signed an MOU with civil society to monitor the conditional cash transfer independently. And that has provided opportunity for citizens to know what is happening. For instance, when we signed the MOU with the federal government, with the support from the DFID, from the British government, we were able to mobilize 500 NGOs, civil society across the country, across 11 states across the country. And this is the first of its kind in the world, where government allows civil society to monitor the utilization of funds. And so, you will recall that the Nigerian government participated in the Global Forum on Asset Recovery, GFAR, in 2017, and set of principles were agreed, particularly around the issue of transparency and accountability. And that
all right, David Ugola, perhaps civil society needs to do more in educating Nigerians on how these monies are being spent and all of that. Thank you for your time.
Well, the point is, when you look at the experience, past experiences, like he even mentioned in the early 2000s, it tells you that Nigerians are very cynical about these things.
Actually.
So publicizing them will go a long way.
Yeah. Well, joining us now to talk more on this is Fred Nzako. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, what came to mind when you heard that another Abacha loot has been recovered or discovered?
Well, it's no longer a shocking news because it doesn't seem to end. And then I believe even a little more will still be discovered because it's on record that Abacha have stashed away between 2.5 and 5 billion US dollars out of Nigeria. And then wherever such funds are, they would have been accumulating some interest because they are all in the banking system. And then some are in other investments. There are some that are still in the United States as we speak. There are some that are still invested in UK and Ireland. So a lot more of such loot will still be discovered. But the sinister message is sent immediately is that if we use Abacha as an example of the loot that we experience in Nigeria from leaders of Nigeria at national and state levels, that means a lot of Nigerians' money is abroad. And that is why, and that is the major reason why we scarcely have enough funds to run the country. We certainly have enough funds to provide the infrastructure needed for the country and then make life a lot better for Nigerians. Because huge amount of Nigerians' money is looted and kept in foreign countries.
Because like you have said, some persons have said that if he hadn't died, we wouldn't have known that
of course, that is
available. All
this Abacha loot is because Abacha is dead. That's all.
So chances are we might make more discoveries when some of these leaders...
Not chances. It is almost obvious that all these leaders have their own loot. But the loots are not spoken about because leaders are still alive. They are alive. And those of them, by the time Abacha was unfortunate that he died while in office, unprepared. Some of these leaders have left office, and a lot of them are very much prepared. They have smoothened the process and then kept the money in many places. And a lot of these funds now come in form of direct foreign investment portfolio, which are not working.
Now there is an issue of some countries, that is Jersey, US, and Nigeria, are to share or are claiming ownership
As
of
a
this
matter of
money.
fact, sometime around in 2008 or so, about $480 million was withheld by American government, by the Justice Ministry. They said they were not going to leave that one, and then it was withheld. So now Jersey Island is insisting that part of these funds will be used to provide infrastructure for their place, because they have kept the money. And Nigerians is shouting that is our money, is our money. Is essentially, if you look at it strictly speaking, they are doing us a huge favor.
Really?
Yes. They are doing us a huge favor by returning these funds. They didn't ask our leader to loot it and keep it abroad. So we have to even encourage that other countries that have found such money should please return such funds to Nigeria. So much of such funds are still kept in foreign countries, not only that of Abacha, but that of almost every other past leader at national and state level.
All right, Fred Nzako, we have to leave it at this point. Thank you for
many
your
thanks.
time on TVC Breakfast.
Joining me now is the lawyer and public affairs analyst, Fred Nzako. It's good to have you join me right now.
Thank you.
Now, despite the different mechanism by the federal government bringing civil society in to monitor these funds, Nigerians are still a little skeptical in the way that the Abacha loot, the recovered funds, are being utilized.
I think Nigerians are right in being skeptical because out of all the huge, humongous amount of money recovered from Abacha since 1998, we have not been given clear description of what the money has been used. $750 million under Sani Abacha in 1998, 1.2 billion under Obasanjo in 2002, about 450 million, and the figures keeps rising. The question is, what has these funds been used for? If you add the totality of what has been said to be recovered from Abacha loot, is close to over $2 billion US. And then the question is, what is this fund being used for? And the latest one, the 211 million pounds sterling, amounting to about 82 billion naira, still from Abacha. Now, Nigerians need to know, where has this money been? 2017, when $322 million was repatriated from Switzerland, government said it was going to be used under the social investment program for conditional transfer to the poorest of the poor. But recently, it is obvious that that program has not run very well. Because even then, the House of Representatives set up an ad hoc committee to investigate, really, let us really know how much has been recovered from Abacha, and then what has been used these funds for.
Yeah, but there are NGOs that the government of Nigeria and also the government of Switzerland have decided to bring together as a monitor of how these funds, and they have testified to the fact that these monies are actually being transferred and is reaching the people.
Yeah, but recently, the First Lady, Mrs. Aisha Buhari, lamented that the funds have not gone to her state in Adamawa. And Adamawa state was one of the states selected out of 19 states, one of the 19 states selected where the 300,000 families will come from. And they said, she asked openly, and the people said they have not received the funds. So something is going on somewhere that Nigerians need to know.
Also, if we follow that development, the presidential aide who was in charge of distribution also countered that and said, well, the First Lady may not have gotten her facts together when it comes to the details of how the monies were spent.
Then let her give the details. Let her give the details. She's the one spending the money, or rather, superintending over the expenditure as the special advisor to the president on SIP. Yeah. Let her give the details. What does it stop government from giving details? But meanwhile, Mike, there's another dimension to this issue. Right. All this Abacha loot. Some Nigerians believe that all these monies are not just coming from Abacha.
Okay.
Some Nigerians believe. And when you think
where would they be coming from?
That whenever any other government official that looted wanted to repatriate, or anyone that was seen, and then in order to save
based on plea bargain,
based on behind the scene plea bargain, and they wanted to protect the integrity of that official, they will say Abacha loot. So Abacha has become...
This is a new dimension.
Abacha has become, unfortunately, the fall guy because he is late. And I want to tell you that if I were a member of Abacha family, I would take federal government to court because it has become obvious.
Why is that?
It has become obvious. Yes, the father may have looted, but the name of Abacha family is being terribly maligned.
Or maybe they're not coming out because it's true that some of the funds that have been repatriated are actually what they said.
They may have been beating black and blue down the line. They may have been beating black and blue down the line.
All right, before we go now...
They should begin to think in that direction.
All right, before we go now, there's the issue of this last Abacha loot now. Abacha loot, let's call it that way. Abacha loot now.
The narrative has
being shared between Nigeria, Jersey, and United States. Why so?
The country said, according to them, that they cannot just release such huge amount of money, that it will affect the economy. Jersey Island is a small island in a small
with about less than 400,000 people.
Yes, that it will shake and hurt the economy. So they cannot release all, or otherwise they won't release at all.
All right, we have to leave it here now. Fred Nzako, thank you very much for lending your voice on this. And also giving us a new perspective of the narrative. Abacha loot.
Let's think in that direction.
Thank you very much.